Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for choosing our show today. Thank you very much for standing with this channel. You give me the enthusiasm to do this. You give me the energy, the passion, and the excitement to do this every day. Without you guys, I wouldn't have been where I am. Thank you very much for your support. Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and members of the broad-based government continue to find it very difficult to convince Kenyans that they mean well for us because the ground is changing. It is not changing for the better, it's changing for the worse. Yesterday, Kithure Kindiki was heckled in Othaya Nyeri, that is the home turf of the former late President Mwai Kibaki, and almost the home turf because it is the county of Rigathi Gachagua. So he was heckled. People were telling him one term, a slogan that is causing William Ruto sleepless nights. So today, there was that discussion, the state of the nation and how politics is changing our country. There were leaders who are representing the broad-based government and other leaders who are representing the opposition, Wamunyoro. So one of the leaders is the Nyando member of parliament, the very eloquent Jared OOKO. And he tried to defend the broad-based government and attacked Rigathi Gachagua. But in a rebuttal, Joe Nyotu, who is the senator of Murang'a, handled Jared OOKO with a lot of precision and wisdom, with a very reconciliatory tone, and was telling Jared that if you are in the broad-based government and you are eating kula pole pole, wacha kupiga kelele. And I want us to look at that, then when we come back, we will unravel the trap that Raila and his ODM brigade is blindly getting into, because William Ruto has laid this trap for them. Kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, please like and share our videos. Thank you once again for your support. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly listen to this tackle.
Is this intolerance largely from the political class? When you hear the chants of one term, one more term, are you as a political class to blame for this?
It can only come from one source, really, which is the political class. Because outside politics, you have investors who are quiet doing their own businesses. So they really have nothing. They can be intolerant when the economic atmosphere is not conducive to transact their businesses. But let me come to what you have just showed on TV with the chants. It is not coincidental, and it is not happenstance that this is happening just a day after the president and his deputy received a thunderous welcome at the lakeside in Homa Bay. Now, the Wamunyoro team, hereby represented by my friend Honorable Nyotu, are still nursing, the impeachment, post-impeachment disorder. When Rigathi Gachagua was impeached, and there were push and shove here and there, they knew that the state at which President William Ruto's politics had reached was a dead end. And therefore, they coined phrases like Ruto must go, Ruto one term, which simply means the same thing. It's just a matter of semantics. And having done all that, they knew that the country was going to repel anything pro-Ruto. And therefore, they are so shocked that President Ruto can visit the lakeside in the company of the Prime Minister Raila Odinga and receives such a huge welcome, meaning therefore that what was hitherto conceived, that President Ruto can actually be one term, is coming to be the reverse, that this guy actually has a second chance at the cherry. And, demonstrations and signs are out there that he has what it takes to move a particular section of the country in his support, in replacement of the Wamunyoro who have deliberately chosen to disconnect themselves with our country. Now, why was that important? You can see that those few boys chanting Ruto one term were actually outside the perimeter fence. Why would they choose to be outside if everybody else is inside? That in politics, and my brothers can bear me witness here, is a testament of hired goons, hired to go and cause mayhem and to shout. Otherwise, in a normal gathering where people would want to express a different opinion, they would actually be with you in the same crowd and then, fire back at certain intervals depending on the message that you are out to deliver. But these were outside, hired to cause whatever they did. Of course, the police overwhelmed them because there were so few and probably the payment delayed, and they had to leave. And then the event continued. Well, we take judicial notice that anyone impeached cannot run for political office, and therefore Rigathi will not. I'm looking forward to a situation where the Mount Kenya bastion will rally behind somebody else outside their own. I know they have said they are going to attend some seminar to arrive at a candidate. I'm looking to wait, the white smoke out of that seminar.
Trevor, I just think I want to ask Jared to look for a good pastor.
Don't mention him again.
No, just. No, yes.
I'm here on the sidelines.
Okay. Why I say that is because instead of telling us how they are going to win the elections, he cannot do 2 sentences without mentioning Rigathi Gachagua, and that's why I think he needs some deliverance. I can help him locate a good pastor who can help him in deliverance from the nightmares that Gachagua is causing him and his group. And there is a reason, Trevor, why IEBC, I stands for independent. And these commissioners, this commission, in the eyes of Kenyans, may not be independent. And so I don't know what can be done. But finally, just to ask ODM to eat quietly. And if you enter into a polygamous union where you are the second wife and the first wife is thrown out, you don't have to keep throwing barbs at the first wife, who has no business with you, who has moved away from the husband that you want to keep, praising. Concentrate with your new husband. Leave the old wife alone. Let the old wife and her children chart a new way. You don't have to keep talking about them. And finally, Kenya ODM should stop being Kenya Kwanza more than Kenya Kwanza itself. If you look at the attacks that we in Wamunyoro, as like calling us, are getting, it is from ODM. We are wondering, what problem does ODM have with us? We left the husband, the unworthy husband, to them. Please keep your husband. We have no use for the new husband now. So just concentrate, let us be.
All right.
We do not have, but Jared, please see me. I know of a good pastor. You need deliverance. Sometimes it's disappointing to listen to people who are leaders, people who went to school, but who, instead of addressing the question on the table, twist things to suit a particular narrative. And I'm referring to my friend Jared here. There were chants of one term by ordinary wananchi in Nyeri. But Jared, takes this and twists it. And even, in fact, says it was a response to the rousing welcome that Ruto received in Homa Bay. I mean, it's sad, Trevor. I mean, listening to a sober mind like Mukwanja here, addressing the issues, that is what should be looked at. What could have led these Kenyans, because Rigathi Gachagua was not anywhere near there, what would have led these Kenyans into those chants? And I liked Mukwanja's, approach. One, it is, Kenyans are continuously feeling suppressed. And the case of Jerry is the latest in point. I mean, that you just establish a platform for Kenyans to air their views regarding the finance bill 2025, and then you are arrested for having committed no crime at all, you know, showing that there is intolerance on the part of government. Let me tell Jared and assure him that the people of Mount Kenya, and I'm not here just to talk about Mount Kenya, it's because this incident happened in Nyeri, which is in Mount Kenya, have no problem, and I don't know how many times we need to repeat this. We have no problem with Nyanza or ODM supporting Ruto. Nobody has ever complained. And if there is anyone in my team that has ever complained that ODM is supporting William Ruto, let Jared bring it to the table. I do not know why the leaders of from Nyanza are fighting us. We do not fight them. We are not, they have a right to associate with Ruto. The decision will be made by Kenyans. Okay. And there has been some opinion polls that were, you know, that were made public last week. And the percentage of people who do not support the broad-based government, I mean, it was there for everybody to see. So please, Jared, don't ever think that whatever happens in Mount Kenya is informed by however Ruto is treated in Nyanza. We have no problem with that. We know that when somebody is rejected at home, they go to Nyanza to be nursed. I mean, Uhuru was happiest in his second term. The happiest moments would be found in Nyanza. And because, you know, now that Jared has said that, and I don't like, you know, I respect people, and I respect Raila Amolo Odinga a lot. But it is true. When you are rejected at home from your former, you know, support base, you run to Nyanza. And that is where you get comfort. So because Nyanza has decided to be the comforter of the reject, we have no problem with that.
Who is the
so please,
who is the reject?
Please.
Who is the reject?
But Uhuru was rejected at home. That is why he used to come to be nursed. That is what Nyanza is doing for Ruto. I mean, if you have chosen that to be the cause, you know, we have no problem with that.
Now, you will agree with me that the Murang'a Senator, John Otu, was top-notch in the way he handled Jared Okello. Because one, he was telling him, kama mko kwa serikali kuleni polepole, wacheni kelele. And then he told them, hii mambo ya kila saa kabla hujalala, kabla hujasema kitu lazima utaje Rigathi Gachagua kwa kinywa chako, ni kama umerogwa, you know. And I like the way he did it. To him, he never wanted to attack. And I was wondering, why is the ODM brigade attacking members of Wamunyoro, those who are allied to the Wamunyoro party or the Wamunyoro team? And it is very true that these days, ODM is, you know, behaving as if they are more government than the people who voted for William Ruto. Yet they got into this government through the back door. But ladies and gentlemen, I want us to look at some two facts about what is happening. Then we get into the trap that ODM is slowly, surely, and blindly getting into. Number one, and I know you might not like this, but this is the truth. When majority of Kenyans rejected William Ruto, that is in 2022, the people of Mount Kenya really embraced William Samoei Ruto. And remember how William Ruto went there through the church? William Ruto could sing some sacred songs in their vernacular, and they believed in William Ruto. They said, "Siu chawi ni maombi." In fact, when William Ruto was declared the winner of the 2022 presidential election, the people of Mount Kenya were over the moon with joy because they had procured a president that every Kenyan had rejected. So that is a fact. That is why some people who joined William Ruto later, you know, are asking one question. This is your president. You believed in him. So when we now come to help you support him, you now call us names. So that is a fact that the people of Mount Kenya, not all of them, but majority, painted Mount Kenya yellow, the UDA color, and they sang with a lot of pride. They thought they had reached the promised land. So that is a fact. Number two, when Rigathi Gachagua was sworn in as the deputy president, he launched a very fierce attack to Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga. And every time Rigathi Gachagua got an opportunity to speak, he would say the only conversation we can have with Raila Amolo Odinga is how he can exit politics. That is a fact. In fact, as a supporter of Rigathi, this might offend you, but Rigathi himself is not offended. He told us that it is William Ruto who used to give him that script to tell Raila that you will not get to State House, to tell Raila that he has laid a lot of traps. Rigathi was also behaving in a manner that did not befit a leader. That is a fact, even if it might really offset you in some way. That is a fact. But now, must we continue looking back? That is the question that I want us to ask this morning. Because the people, if you look at the people, if you look at the ODM supporters and leaders, they are doing this to punish the people of Mount Kenya. But do you really think that they are punishing the people of Mount Kenya? I will let you know that this is a very blind move, because in a bid to punish Mount Kenya, they punish themselves. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, why we really need to move away from this conversation. Having looked at the fact that Mount Kenya supported William Ruto when the idea was unpopular, and when they got to power, Rigathi Gachagua behaved in such a manner that he was the prefect, where yeye ndiye alikuwa kinara. He said, no one, if you never voted for William Ruto, then you never deserved anything. Even though later we realized that politics of shareholders or shareholding is something that is spread across. Today, Yoburu says, tunataka share yetu. Now, the reason why we must stop looking back, and if we have to look back, we only have to look back in retrospect and learn, is because Luos must understand, or rather the ODM, because I have realized that Luo Nyanza is the only group that is now supporting William Ruto. But they must understand that they are getting into a trap that Mount Kenya got into. When we were given a chance to elect our leaders, we forgot that once you make that decision, you will have to live with it for another 5 years. And Mount Kenya voted to punish Uhuru Kenyatta and his project, Raila Amolo Odinga. That is what they used to say. We must learn that we should not try to use a very important event, a very inherent right to vote, to try and punish others. When you vote, please vote focusing on the leaders that will lead you. Stop looking at your opponents, that you want to vote Mr. A to punish Mr. B. No, it will not help. Look at people with the right ideas, with the right policies. Mount Kenya did not look at people with the right policies. As a matter of fact, William Ruto was a liar from the onset. Na walikuwa wanaambiwa nyinyi ni hustler, Raila pendi Mungu, all this. And that's why I'm saying that the only way we should look back in retrospect and learn. But the ODM is not learning, because they are now in this government to punish Wamunyoro and this group. Wanaona revenge is served sweet when it is hot, and they believe this is the moment. We must learn. We must not repeat the very mistakes that Mount Kenya did. And that's why I'm saying that we need to move away from this conversation ya kwamba Gachagua alikuwa anaamka asubuhi anataka kuua watu wa Azimio. Yes, it is now a draw. They have neutralized. Alikuwa anafanya hivyo, and we condemned it in this channel. That is why when ODM gets into that trap, we must call them out. So politics of punishing others backfires. Like now, it has backfired on them. Number two, we must not go on a vengeful expedition. You know, like right now, they now want to revenge on Mount Kenya for not voting Raila, for laughing at them when they believe that their votes were rigged. But when we do that, we lose focus, because our main focus is how do we reconstruct a very deplorable state of our economy, and who can do it for us. Right now, we are not giving any other leader a chance. We are focused on William Ruto. Why? Because we are punishing Rigathi Gachagua the way they were punishing us. So if we go on this vengeful expedition, we will not move on as a country. We will stagnate, because what will happen is today we'll be voting to support Ruto, not because William Ruto is good, but because Gachagua is bad in our own eyes. After William Ruto is sworn in, we will come back to square zero, factory settings. We really need to focus on our economy, socio-economic, and political developments of our country. What are the things that William Ruto promised, and is he executing them? Number 3, our problems are common. We share the same common problems. Poverty does not choose that you're a Kikuyu or a Luo or a Kisii or a Luya or a Costarian or a Kamba. When poverty strikes with the bad policies, all of us will suffer. The cost of living is high today for everyone. And we need to understand that we only have 2 tribes, the haves and the have-nots. If you don't have, it doesn't matter whether you're a Kikuyu or a Luo or what. We really need to understand that we have shared problems. And so we should not allow leaders to divide us along tribal and political lines. Those leaders, for example, Gachagua and Ruto and Raila, Mudavadi, Kalonzo, Wetangula, name them. Those people can afford to have a meal in very high hotels, high-end hotels that we cannot afford. And you know, their children do businesses together. They shop in expensive malls we cannot afford. The sooner we realize that as a common man, we really need to hold each other's hands, the better. Because today, we are falling into this trap that when Raila and Ruto have shaken hands, now Luos and Kalenjins are friends, they want to sideline Kikuyus. Then when Raila shakes hands with Rigathi, then all of a sudden, Kalenjins become bad. So Luos and Kikuyus become friends. This is very bad because, and I've always asked you this question on this channel. I want you to assume today that you are sick. You fall sick in the middle of the night. You need to go to the hospital. If you are a Luo, I want you to ask yourself from where you are, especially those who live in the city. I want you to ask yourself, especially in Nairobi, who will be there to help you? You need some money very fast, maybe 200 or 500 to pay for hospital bills, or someone needs to carry you very fast to go to the hospital. Will Raila do it, or your neighbor who is a Kikuyu and a Kisii? And ask yourself, ukikosa chumvi pale na unataka kwenda kwa jirani kuomba, will you run to Raila in his current home, ama utaomba jirani wako? And what I'm preaching here is brotherhood, so that we don't play politics of revenge. Our problems are shared, and we only have one country, which is Kenya. I want us to forget about what happened. And Mount Kenya must learn, ODM must learn, every other tribe must learn, that when you vote, this is a very important exercise. Let us have the right leadership. Let us not focus on, after that election, I could see people who supported William Ruto. They were looking at, the ODA, the Azimio supporters as if they were not Kenyans, as if they were cast, as if they never belonged to this country. When something happens, sometimes it forces the supporters of the ODM or Azimio to also pay back. But I wanted us to start afresh so that we stop focusing on these leaders and how we revenge on them. It is not going to help us. Let us vet our leaders and put in place only leaders who have got the best interest of Kenyans at heart, only leaders who have got the best policies. If you ask me, William Ruto does not have the best interest. And this perceived enemy between Kikuyus and Luos must end, because by the end of the day, Luos and Kikuyus belong to the country. And we must have realized that this idea of trying to vote to sideline others cannot work, because I've seen people say we want to have 42 against 1. You cannot sideline any community in this country. They are taxpayers. They give Kenya a lot of revenue. Let us embrace each other as we move forward.